So there were a couple of opening lap shenanigans we're going to look at. The first is Lando Norris, who had a stunning day on Saturday, getting that McLaren into the top three, punching way above his weight, really, in that car. And he's still, I think, one of the quickest drivers in the field, just mired in a McLaren that's pretty underdeveloped and still should be fighting towards the back. And he knew on Sunday, even though he was starting third, that finishing on a podium was highly unlikely, and actually just taking some points would be a solid result. But it wasn't to be at all for Lando. So let's have a look. As we get the race underway, you've got Norris in third here in the McLaren. And the man that's going to be putting pressure on him is Lewis Hamilton, who gets a decent start, a good launch from Lewis, and he's immediately tucked right in behind Carlos Sainz. And he's going to get a good draft up towards the first corner as the top two move to the inside. It's Hamilton now on the inside of Norris, and they're coming to the first corner side by side. Stroll looking to get in on the action as well, but there's not really anywhere for Lance to go. So the top two are going to run side by side through the corner. The second two aren't actually. Hamilton does a good job on the brakes, and he's through into third place. Norris didn't fight that one particularly hard, braked quite early. And as we come through here, we're going to get the contact. Now, it starts because these top two are coming from kind of off the track, really, particularly in the case of Verstappen here. He's coming from almost all four wheels off the circuit, so he's very tight into the second corner. As is Sainz, is not quite as tight, but he's also just coming from a way tighter line than these two, who are on a much more conventional part of the circuit here, Hamilton and Norris. They've got a clearer run through turn two. And with Verstappen and Sainz coming onto the circuit, Hamilton just checks his run a little bit because he has to with those guys coming on. Moves towards the inside because he's trying to get the run through here to try and put pressure actually on Sainz for second place immediately. But Lando just doesn't quite read this one correctly. He's in fourth and he just runs now into the back of Hamilton. He's just on the gas a little bit, waiting, and he just drifts the McLaren into the rear left of Hamilton. Now, this one is sadly entirely on Norris, but it's also a bit circumstantial because of those top two that were coming onto the circuit. We go on board with Hamilton and we can see a little bit more what I'm talking about. Gets a good start, immediately gets the launch, and then compared to Norris, it's these two start moving over to the right-hand side, which provide Hamilton with a big slipstream opportunity. And he gets a good run now up the inside of Norris, does the job on the brakes. Now, the top two are going to go wide. And here, they're really compromised coming through this corner. So Hamilton has no choice. He knows that he cannot go around the outside of them because they're going to wash back on the circuit and he's going to be forced out towards the gravel on the outside. So he's just having to wait now a little bit to apply the throttle. And he waits and he waits. And now he's looking... There's the contact, but he's looking for that space now to get a straighter exit and pressure Carlos Sainz in towards turn three. And it's absolutely legitimate what Lewis is doing, but it's just there the contact comes. There's clearly not space on the inside for Lando, and he's just slightly, I think, sloppy, or he's misread it, really. And we can see on board with Lando exactly how it unfolds then. Again, the top two move in front of him, and now they're moving in front of Hamilton, which gives him a good draft into the first corner. Lando doesn't fight particularly hard. He knew this was going to be a tough afternoon. And now you see, again, the top two way offline. Now, Norris can see this all as well. He can see this unfolding. So you've got to read the situation. This is a very typical Barcelona start where two drivers run very deep and then they're scrabbling through turn two. So it's a very typical thing. Hamilton checks, and Norris just doesn't read it. Just carries on with too much momentum, and there's the contact, and that is a bit of Norris's front wing end plate there. Lando's going to get that stuck in his front wing, and he has to pit for repairs. His actual first lap wasn't too bad, even considering the damage, but it's just the slightest bit of contact on the angle there, with the end plate just snagging with Hamilton right on the rear of Hamilton's left rear. It's a slight contact. We saw so many bigger contacts than this in Monaco that everyone got away with. But this one, it's the angle of which Lando hits Lewis that causes the damage. And just comes from Lando not quite reading the situation ahead and just drifting into the Mercedes and drifting completely out of contention from the point. But I did want to show you this overtake from Lance Stroll. Now, this is probably the move that Hamilton was trying to put on Sainz had he not been tagged by Norris. Outside of turn three gives you the outside line for turn four. And this was one of the moves of the race for me from Lance. Round the outside. They're in a very similar position as this last year, Hamilton and Magnussen. And there was a little bit of contact as they were forced a lot wider. And here there's plenty of room for Stroll. Goes around the outside. He's actually behind Lewis, so Lewis could be more aggressive technically at the apex and towards the exit of the corner. Lance keeps his nose in and then makes this move down into turn 5. Good on the brakes. It's a cracking start from Stroll then, who was sat behind Norris and Hamilton early on, took advantage of it, and this should have set him up for a podium chance, but Aston Martin just weren't quick enough. The Mercedes pace was too strong.